Hello, everybody. We are back with another exciting episode of Unlimited Minds. Today, I have in my studio with me KIARA LUNA, who is a licensed therapist, and she's going to talk about childhood trauma and how it impacts, even though you may not realize it impacts your life today. KIARA, take it away.
Hi, Zehra. Thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor to be here with you and spending this time with you. Well, my name is Kiara, as you shared. I'm still blown away by the fact that I am a licensed mental health therapist, right? And that I am a best-selling author, and that I own my own clinic because, I'm the same person that was told by a high school teacher that I was never going to be anything in life. Yeah, yeah, very tough words coming from someone that you looked up to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, at that point feeling heartbroken, feeling
Right.
like, oh my goodness, like, why would a person who I really take
Yeah.
look up to
Yeah.
say something so hurting to me? But I was a teenager, and as a teenager I was also a tough cookie. um so I remember telling myself, Kiara, don't say anything, don't say anything, just walk away, just walk away. And I did. I walked away. I didn't say anything. But those words kept on repeating in my mind.
Mm.
You would never be
Yeah.
anything. You would never be anything. You would never be anything. And it just kept on getting louder and louder. And to the point where I was about not to graduate high school because my grades started going down. Um, I was not studying as hard as I was before. Just her words really was taking a toll on me.
Mm.
And I remember one day I realized that, oh, wait a minute, this is not me. These words that I continue to hear in my head, those are not my words, right? And I remember when I realized that, I started saying affirmations that I would be, that I am graduating. I am walking down that aisle with my diploma. And thankfully, right, I was able to graduate. I was given my diploma and I walked down that aisle. And this is the reason that I am so passionate about teaching, but also helping my clients overcome limiting beliefs and learning how childhood trauma plays a role in who they are today. And how that also plays a role in the limiting beliefs that we have adapted, that we're not even adapted by ourselves, that we didn't install those in there.
Mm.
It was because of the experiences that we have been through, and that unfortunately sometimes we have not been able to acknowledge because of the lack of awareness. uh
How do you become aware that you have these limiting beliefs?
yeah, you know part part of the ways that I help my clients become aware, but also I have become aware of my own limiting beliefs, is sometimes based on the behaviors, but also based on the feelings that I'm having.
Hmm.
Right. So if I know that I'm not feeling right, if I know that I'm angry all the time, I was a really angry teenager. So I knew, and then I found myself in repeating cycles in my life, right? Attracting certain type of people in my life, attracting people who, would also treat me, very not good, right? I also was a people pleaser, because I wanted people to like me, and I wanted to be part
Mm.
of certain groups, right? And I wanted
Right.
to be part of certain communities. So as I got older, I started realizing, and then I was very intrigued about mental health and psychology, right? So I started reading books really early on. And those books really, really supported me and helped me in realizing and realizing and coming aware of a lot of the tendencies that I had as a person. And once I got into school, of course, and learned more about it. But one of the ways that I help now today my clients to realize some of the limiting beliefs that they may have is sometimes by identifying their behaviors and their tendencies, but also a lot of the maladaptive behaviors that they may have today, right? So for example, a lot of us women, some of us, right, grow up in homes where we always have to take care of others, you know. So then we develop this tendency of self-sacrificing and putting everybody else first before ourselves, right? And then that's when we build this resentment and, you know, and anger, because now we are not taking care of ourselves.
It sounds like a domino effect. You
Yes.
know, one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. And before you know it, you've forgotten about the original cause, right?
Yeah.
And while you were talking, I was thinking about the teachers in my life who've had either a positive impact on me or a negative impact on me.
Mm.
And it is huge because I think so. A teacher in my third grade had a negative impact on me
How
that
sad.
just completely destroyed my academic career. And then a teacher in my sixth grade had such a positive impact on me that it changed everything for me going forward. So,
Mm.
you know, just like one sentence from someone
Yeah.
sometimes can be like a dagger in your heart. And one of the things that I've learned is that that was my response to the words. It didn't have to be my response, but that's the response I had because I wasn't expecting that from that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why it hurt me. So it's how did you get out of it? What were the thoughts, some of the thoughts that you thought when that teacher said that hurtful thing to you?
Yeah.
How did you, and you had this process of coming out of it, so you finally got your high school diploma.
Mhm.
How did you change that thinking?
Yeah, you know, when I look back and I reflect back, I realized that it was me rewiring my own brain without knowing that I was doing that, right?
Mm,
Because at that point I was 15, yeah, 15, 16. So when I look back now, I'm like, oh, wow, I was implementing the affirmations, right? Positive affirmation, affirming myself positively without knowing that I was doing so, right?
mm.
So because I started at that point saying, like, you know what? No, I'm graduating. I'm absolutely graduating. And I was speaking it into existence almost, right? Like, not almost, I spoke it into existence. Uh, because our words are so powerful, right? And I know that we say that a lot and we hear that
Yeah,
all the time,
yeah,
but that is the truth.
yeah.
And you know, and at that point I started telling myself that I was graduating, and you know, I now when I look back, I remember, like, I started telling myself I was graduating, and then I started taking the actions that were leading me towards that, right? So I
Mm.
started studying, I started, you know, being more you know, doing my
Ah,
assignments, my grades started going up. So like
ah.
those thoughts and those affirmations that I was saying was really leading me and taking me through the path to get me to that goal, which was to graduate.
So you said something wonderful there. It's the thoughts come before the action happens. The
Yes.
the thoughts guide the action. And
Mhm.
so that's why if you're an investigator, you know, like you see on CSI or whatever, and you're really working backwards from the behavior, saying, what was the thought
Yes.
that created
Yes.
this behavior?
Right.
And then I'm putting words in your mouth, but I'm thinking that that's how therapy works, is you figure that out and then you help people to change that thought. Would
Yes.
that be
Yes.
kind of?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because the thing is that a lot of us, you know, we have about 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, right?
Yes, that's right.
I don't know about you, but you know, I am
Mhm.
not aware of all of those. There's
Yes,
so
that's
many
right.
of them, you know, and
Yeah.
there's a big, and about 90% of our thoughts are thoughts that we had yesterday, right?
Hmm.
So and then a huge percentage of that of those thoughts are also negative, right?
Hmm.
So all of these I have all of these thoughts, and if I'm not aware of them,
Hmm.
right, I'm going to be living life without knowing why I'm living life the way that I am living it,
Hmm.
without realizing that, no, well,
Hmm.
your thoughts impact your
Yeah.
behaviors, your
Yeah.
thoughts impact how you feel,
Yeah.
right? So it's about gaining different perspectives. It's about
Right.
being able to see things differently, to be able to really kind of manipulate the thoughts, right? So
Right.
you can
Right.
really rewire the way that you feel.
Right. Right.
So absolutely. So in therapy, I do a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Which
Hmm.
is really helping our clients learn how our thoughts impact the ways that we feel and the ways that we behave. Because it goes. Let me say that a lot of us feel or think that we need to change the things externally, right?
Right.
And people don't realize that, no, you first have to change internally for your external world to look the way that you want it to look.
Right. Right. So can you take us through a hypothetical example of, like, let's take something like a bad habit, or, something that people really want to learn about is weight loss, or, something addictive that they want to get over. How would you, in your sleuthing process,
Mhm.
how would you go about uncovering what's going on?
Yeah. So let's say an example of weight loss. You want to go with
Okay.
that one? Okay.
Whichever one you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go with weight loss. Let's say that there's someone who, is really wants to lose weight, right?
Right.
But let's say that this person has a a list of beliefs that go against that. So let's say that logically you want to lose weight, but emotionally you are not there, right?
Mm.
Emotionally you do not believe that you're capable of losing weight, right?
Okay, what does that
So
look like? What are
so
some of
yeah, so that looks like saying, yes, I am very dedicated. I want to lose weight, but I don't really believe that I can do it. I don't think that I'm not capable of doing it. I cannot discipline myself. I cannot go to the gym. I don't like the gym. I don't like eating healthy. This is too hard. I would never be, the weight that I want to be. So all of those limiting beliefs, right? That's what that looks like.
Mhm, mhm.
Now, one of the things that I do is first let's find out where all of this, where all of these limiting beliefs are coming from,
Okay.
right? So typically we go back to childhood. So,
I was just going to ask you how childhood trauma fits into this.
yeah.
Okay.
So more often than not, you grew up in a home where, you were criticized for the way you looked. And people who looked skinnier, for example, or looked a certain way were praised. And
Mhm,
it's the hardest when you also grow up with another sibling who is, for example, fit or looks skinnier than you, and they are always being complimented and you're not.
mm.
Right. So now what you are really thinking in your mind is that, one, I'm not good enough, right? Two, I want to be skinny, but I can't be. And then you start to get all of these limiting beliefs and negative beliefs about who you are as a person. So you start to identify as this person.
Mm.
Right. And then your self-esteem is low, right? You don't believe in yourself, like so many different things, right? Then you have the other side of this is that you may have your parents tell you got to lose weight, you have to lose
Mm.
weight, you have to lose weight, and please don't eat that, or so they are very critical and harsh towards the person. So now as the person gets older, the person has internalized these voices now, right? Because what we do when we become teenagers is we want to take power. And the ways that I would take power from my caretakers is by taking how they hurt me and actually start doing it to myself. So I adapt that external critical voice and I internalize it, because now when you say it to me, it doesn't face me anymore. It doesn't matter.
Right.
I already do it to myself. So you doing it to me,
Ah,
it doesn't matter.
oh my
Right.
goodness. Wow. So that's how we start accepting negative comments from people, because we just think, oh, that's exactly who I am.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
is true.
And the repetition of it too, right? Because it's one thing if one person says it once, but the more you hear this, it becomes a belief for you, because it's a thought that's how beliefs are formed, is by
You just see
repetition.
yourself like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So if all I hear all the time is how bad I look, you know, I'm going to start believing that I actually do look bad. And then once I believe it, forget about it. That's all I'm going to start seeing and feeling horrible about it.
Wow. So then, how does someone self-identify that there's something that they need to deal with?
Yeah. I always, some of my clients, when they really struggle with identifying childhood traumas or or make the connections for themselves, I always tell them, start with today. Start with what is triggering to you today. Start
Okay.
with what are the general things that you believe about, that you believe
Mm-hmm.
about yourself, that you believe about the world, that you believe about anything. Like, what are your belief systems? What do you feel really strongly about? you know. So for example, that person that wants to lose weight, I would ask, like, what are your current beliefs, right? I would then ask them, where do you think these voices are coming from? So like, let's go through like a whole history about who you are, and then what are the feelings that you have as a result of having these beliefs, right? But sometimes if you don't know what the beliefs are, sometimes we don't. Sometimes these beliefs are really in our subconscious mind, and they are just shown through behaviors. So I would ask questions. I would ask them to really pay attention to how they behave, the toxic behaviors.
I'm thinking if you ask me what I believe, I'm going to really have a hard time figuring out what my beliefs are, like listing them out. I was
Yeah.
just thinking, as you're asking this question, I'm thinking, okay, what do I believe in? I believe my parents love me. I believe my children love me. I believe I'm a good person. But it's really difficult to create a list of beliefs. For example, what do I believe about what limiting beliefs do I have? Now I'm lost because I can't. So how does one actually uncover those limiting beliefs?
Yeah. So typically I focus on one area of their life, right? So
Okay.
for
Okay.
example, if we are focusing on the weight loss, I would say, what are your beliefs about you being able to lose weight? So it could be anything from, I don't think I can do it, I'm not and then once they say, I don't think I can do it, for example, it is my job, like as a therapist, to be able to take you deeper, right, into that. Because then once we kind of uncover that and I ask more probing questions, I'm able to get to the level where I don't think I'm deserving of having the body that I want. Right. And then we kind of uncover again, okay, well, how come you don't feel like you're deserving? Right? Like, where does that come from? For
Mm-hmm.
someone who is trying to do this work on their own, right? And like being
Right.
self, there's a lot of self-help books that can guide you through that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing is that sometimes when we are by ourselves and we are
Right.
trying to do the work on our own, it's really difficult to do so, because it's almost like when we have a problem in our life, because we are in it, we cannot
We
see.
can't see it. Yes.
Right. But when someone else is there to guide you, whether that's a coach, whether that's a therapist, whether that is, someone that you really, really trust and that can be unbiased, then you're able to become aware of certain things that you're not. A lot of the ways that I tell my clients to be aware of what their beliefs might be is by paying attention to their behaviors, but also asking for feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's really great to ask people you trust, once again, for feedback, right? Like, what are some of the behaviors that I may show up? How may I show up in this relationship?
Right.
What are ways that I show up in this relationship? And that tells you a lot about yourself.
Mm. Okay. So then how do you go backwards? Like, is it necessary to go backwards? Can we not start from where we are and just move forwards?
That's a great question. I'm a firm believer that it is important to recognize to go back in history and recognize where these things may be coming from for you. Because, history repeats itself if we don't know what has made us who we are today. And I
Mm-hmm.
always feel like, in order for me to be able to work on what is my saying, is that once I'm self-aware of what made me how I am today, I'm able to change it. Like, okay, the human brain is just so complicated, and sometimes when we cannot find, and sometimes we don't need to find the answers to things, but once we find the answers to certain maladaptive behaviors we may have today, it is easier to make the changes in our lives sometimes, right? To some people are able to say, this is my maladaptive behavior and I want to change it, and be able to implement
Change
some
it
of the
right like that.
strategies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
implement the strategies that I provide, and be able to, like, next, like, literally in a week or two, they come back and they're like, I'm doing better.
I'm going to ask you a question about that. So I have noticed my father had this friend, and one day he was a chain smoker. He smoked all the time. One day he said, "I'm quitting," and he quit. He never smoked again.
Yeah.
And then I see people who keep talking about quitting, and then they quit for a couple of days, and then they go back to it. So what's going on there? Why is it that one person is able to quit like that and the other person has such a hard time quitting?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. You know what I find, and I see that all the time in my clients, and this is what I see. I see difference in personality. So there is decisiveness, there is commitment, there is more positive thoughts going through that person's mind, and there is commitment. And I don't know if I already said that word, but there is like this commitment to be who they truly want to be, and their focus is the outcome, right? Their focus is, if this is what I want to do, this is what I need. If this is what who I want to be, this is what I need to do. And there's just that decisiveness and that ability also to have different perceptions about themselves, right? While the other person who I see struggling and really repeating the same cycles over and over again, right, is a person who's more often than not very, very negative, unable to really kind of switch their thoughts and their mindset. And they let the external reality of their world, their 3D world, really dictate how they feel. So instead of going from in out, they're going from out in, and then the cycles just continue to.
I like how you said that just now.
Yeah.
Very powerful. Okay, so can we teach people how to have that commitment and the discipline and all the things that you talk about? That how do you teach someone to become, from being negative, go to being positive? How do you do that? What's that
Yeah.
transformation?
Yeah. You know, I always I'm a teacher at heart. So a lot of the work that I do with my clients is, first I teach, right? I provide the skills, I
Right.
provide the tools, and I explain them. I like to explain how come this is being recommended, how come
Right.
this is important for you, right?
Right.
But one of the ways that I find very effective is really asking the right questions to that client, for that client to make the decision on their own. That, oh yeah, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot be in this cycle anymore. Right. And sometimes when you get them to realize that, right, to like, oh yeah, this is not okay for me, this is not good, they're able to make the changes for and for themselves, and they're on their own, of course, with the tools being provided.
Yeah, yeah. I say something similar. I say that when the goal is important enough, nothing stands in the way, is that, all your fears drop away. You just shift because the goal becomes so important. But that's where I also struggle, because how can you help people make their own goals important to themselves?
And that's the part that can be frustrated sometimes for us coaches and therapists,
Yeah,
because we cannot. We
right,
just can't. There's no way that we can convince them to see what we want to see. Like, I can see so much potential in someone, but if they don't see that themselves,
right.
we will be here forever, because you're not going to be as committed to your own change and to your own potential, right? And to being who you truly are at heart. A lot of the work that I do, and sometimes it does help a lot, all of my clients are great, it helps them, is really identifying. And that's why I love the work of childhood trauma, because when you're stuck, is because there's something you're carrying that you may have no idea about, right? That it's just
Invisible
in your.
weight. Yeah,
Yes, that is in your subconscious mind. So when
right.
we are unable to move forward and we feel like we're stuck,
Yes.
let's go back to history then, because there's something there that you're carrying. There's something there that can be in your body. I always recommend the book, The Body Keeps the Score, because it really explains how a lot of the traumatic experiences that we also been through is in our body.
Yes, I
You
agree with
know,
that completely. Our body responds to every single thought we think.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So I think that a lot of the work that I do, sometimes when I feel like my clients are not making any progress, or they're stuck, or I see that they continue to repeat, they come
Right.
every week and they're
Yes.
like, I do want this, I want that. We go back to history and we find, okay, well, what's something that you've been through, or that might have occurred as you got old, as you were going through your childhood, that could have been such an impact for you, that's keeping you stuck in this way.
Can you give us an example of something that you uncover, like just a hypothetical even? I don't mean for you to share any details of a client, but like someone who was experiencing something in their life today, but when they thought it was about who they are today, but when you unwrap the package, you kind of discovered it was something going on in their life that they had experienced in childhood that was holding them back, and then how that was unraveled.
Yeah,
Can you think
yeah,
of a story?
absolutely. The first one that comes to mind is let's say this person, male,
Mhm.
grows up in a home where his father was very emotionally abusive. Yell at him, screamed at him, uh, you know, uh, really, really punishing, right? If he did anything, if he even looked the wrong way or he looked away, the father would really get on him. So let's say that this child grows up in a home where he's emotionally
Yeah,
neglected,
yeah.
emotionally neglected and emotionally abused, right? And mom is also there, but mom is not really stepping in. Mom is also scared of that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Now this child grows up, because of what he's been through, this child learns that he wants to be a gentleman. He wants to be better. He wants to be a better man. And he is a better man, right? He's today an adult. He's a better man
Right,
in terms of, he's a gentleman. He's
right,
nicer, right? But
right.
now he also developed this people pleasing tendency, and
Mm.
he also developed a maladaptive coping skill in addition to people pleasing of drinking alcohol to cope
Mm.
with his emotions. So he doesn't share his emotions either because he wasn't coached while growing up to
Right.
be able to share his emotions, how he feels. Now, when he drinks, he gets violent, right? That's
Mm.
when he becomes his father when
Mm.
he drinks.
But does
But
he
he's
want
not
to
aware
become?
of this.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
doesn't
he's
want to
not a.
become.
Okay.
No. So he doesn't want to become his father. That's the least, the last person he wants to be.
Okay.
He really dislikes his father at this point in life and in time. He dislikes his father because of everything he went through
Experienced.
in
Yeah.
childhood and
Yeah.
experience, right?
Exactly.
But now, he comes to therapy and we're working towards, anger. He realizes when I drink, I become angry and I don't like it. But he's not linking the fact that this is part of your history.
So
So,
it's not
and
part of his DNA. Like
no,
sometimes people say, oh, you're just like your father, you inherited this, but it's not part of his DNA.
no, 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 because you know
Okay.
what? I always say that yes, at core we can have at core we're all loving, we're all compassionate, we're all empathy, we're all love. That's
Right.
who we are at core. From the minute we are born, we're not born with all of these low frequency emotions.
Mm.
We are born with love. Like that's who we are when we are born. And life experiences is what shapes us, is what
Right.
provides now this way of us starting to identify ourselves.
Because I can tell you that my mother always used to throw this at me, you're just like your father, and then I just grew up with that belief that, oh, I want to be more like my mother, but I'm like my father. I must have inherited it. It must be in
Yeah.
my DNA.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a lot of it's funny you mentioned that because I hear that also from my mom.
So,
Like my mom be like,
to me, it's like I have no control over this because I inherited it.
right, right. And I love that you use that word. Like I have no control because I believe that I inherited.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's why a lot of people feel like they cannot change who they are.
right,
They cannot
exactly.
improve or like,
Yes,
oh my
yes.
goodness, if I'm miserable, I'm gonna always be miserable.
So
You
we are
know?
declaring today, Kiara, that there's no such thing.
There's no such thing. No. No such thing. We can always change who we are. We can always change
Yeah,
our identity. If anything, is always changing anyway, right?
right.
And
Yes.
a lot of the ways that I teach my clients to start identifying themselves as what they want to see. Like if you want love in your life, then start declaring that you are love.
Mm,
Start loving yourself, because everything starts with self.
right.
If I want to see compassion towards like from other people towards me, then I have to start giving myself some compassion and grace as well.
Mm,
A lot of the things that I notice is that when my clients complain, for example, about, let's say that they are criticizing, or people are criticizing them, typically they criticize themselves, and they also criticize others, right? So it's all a projection, right, of the ways that we're showing up for ourselves and the ways that we show up for others. It's just a projection also of who we think we are. So a lot of the work that I also do is helping them identify, who are you? How do you identify as? Like, who do you identify as? Typically, I know that for me, every time that people ask me who are you? Like, what do you do? I'm like, well, I'm a mom, I'm a licensed mental health
Yes,
therapist,
that's
right?
right.
I'm
Yeah.
this, I'm
Yeah.
that, like all
Yeah.
of the titles.
Yes.
And we
Nobody
forget to,
says, who are you? I'm love.
yes, right,
No,
right,
nobody
right.
says that, right? I mean, if they
Yeah.
did, we would look at them like, what's wrong with you?
Right, exactly. Like, wait, what do you mean by that?
Exactly, right? Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So tell me something. I have this friend who was abused when she was a child. And even though she's moved on, she's done things in her life, she's gone to school, she's educated herself, she has a family of her own, but she's never let that go. Like she's living life. It's not like her life came to a stop, but it's still on her heart, I feel,
Mhm.
you know? So what does someone like that do? Like, where do they even start dealing with that
Yeah,
kind of emotional trauma
yeah.
in their childhood?
Yeah, that one's a tough one. Mostly because of the feelings that come out of that, right? Rightfully so, right?
Right.
You're
Yeah.
taken advantage of, right?
Yes, that's right.
There's a lot of anger, and there's a lot of
Yes.
perhaps the resentment, and maybe it's not only like towards the abuser, maybe it's towards even feeling unprotected, right? Feeling
Hmm.
unsafe, feeling
That the
scared, like this.
caretakers didn't do their job. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, yes, yes. So
Hmm.
a lot of the work that I do with clients of mine that have been abused is really letting them process it. And I'm an EMDR therapist too. So like in EMDR, we use eye movement desensitization to really help the brain process it. So basically it mimics like when we go to sleep, and we
Hmm.
go into REM sleep, it mimics that, but as while you're awake. And it's a
Right.
really nice way because it helps, you don't have to repeat the story. That can also
Uh-huh.
be re-traumatizing you when you are
Right,
kind of like repeating
exactly.
the
That's the
story.
thing. You repeat the story in your head, then you're reliving all of it over and over and over again.
Right, which makes it more real, which then makes you
Yes.
believe what you already believe even
Right.
more, you
Yeah,
know. uh
exactly.
but part of the work that I do with my clients is really first of all, like getting really understanding the shame, what the shame that they feel
Ah.
and carry is, because a lot of my clients carry deep shame about what happened to
Mm.
them, right? And the way that, and because they have this deep shame and this embarrassment and this, it's really difficult to see it in a different way. So a lot of the work that I do is going back to the events and being able to like, okay, so forgiveness is important. Let me just say that. And implementing empathy is important. But the first thing that we do is really trying to understand, how has this impacted you? Right? How has this impacted you? What are some of what are, because of this event, what are some of the maladaptive behaviors that you have adapted, right?
What is a
Because of it.
maladaptive behavior?
Yeah, so a maladaptive behavior is basically a behavior that we use to cope in order to survive whatever environment we've been in.
Mm.
And a maladaptive behavior is basically just a behavior that because maladaptive behaviors are also positive in some ways. It just has to be balanced, like everything in our life, right? Because self-sacrifice, for example, it could be a good thing as well, right? Because, for example, if I'm gonna use the sandwich example. If I'm full with half of my sandwich, but you're still hungry, it's okay for me to sacrifice that other half and give it to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're still hungry, I'm not hungry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
self-sacrifice is good. Now, it is not good when I'm constantly doing that for other people while I'm staying hungry, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
now I'm taking out of my
Yes.
cup and
Yes.
giving it to
Yes.
other.
Yeah.
So maladaptive behaviors are just those behaviors that we implement as a result of any abuse, any traumatic experience, and now we excessively uh, exhibit those behaviors like self-sacrifice, for example, people pleasing, also shame. And so a lot of the ways that we kind of may show up in the world. Enmeshment is another one. And enmeshment basically means where I'm like I depend a lot on other people. And almost like it's like I almost live through that other person. And a lot of that, we see that a lot in intimate partnerships, even with parents, right? Like I cannot do anything unless
I have approval.
yeah,
Basically, you're seeking approval
yeah,
from other people or permission. Either
validation is
permission
another
or,
one
yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah. So I was thinking, living through trauma like that has got to make you affect your decision making. So you're making different choices in life,
Absolutely.
right? So when is that part of how you deal with people, to show them how their life could have been different and they would have made different choices? If how do you
Yeah, that's a
do
great
that?
question. I believe that so I'm going to speak for me. I believe that
Yes,
everything happens for me, not to me. I
right,
believe that that even the horrible things that have happened in my life has been to teach me, because the thing is, if I didn't go through those experiences, I would not be who I am today.
right.
Right.
And you
So, and
like who you are.
I
That's
love who I
But
am.
that's the difference, Kiara. I find people who don't like who they are today.
Yeah.
So then how do you go from there?
And
I don't
that's
like who
is
I am.
right. And that's teaching self-love. It's like,
Mm.
okay, so
Yeah.
how can we, and it goes back to rewiring these thoughts. Like, how can you see who would you have to become in order to start loving yourself?
Ah, that's a good question. I like that one.
So
And then
it's
go become that.
right. And then we provide the steps and tools to be able to do that. Right. And a lot of the work that I love doing is providing them with first of all, I'm like the one to give homework all the time, and it's providing them with homework to be able to really work through their thoughts, right? Because the first thing that I really want to do when a client starts working with me is tell me what your day looks like. I want you to take a whole 24 hours, and I want to know
Right.
what hour per hour your day looks like. And what you find is that people don't really stop to think, to reflect, to have quiet time for themselves and
Yes, that's right.
meditate,
Yeah.
and a lot of so when they start to think and they start to stop and they start to actually pay attention to their day-to-day, they start to realize all of the things that they think about, that they have not been aware of.
Hmm.
So a lot of the work is really helping them identify those thoughts that they do have, to
Okay.
be aware and be intentional about it. Another part, another important one that I do is really teaching them how to take an event, right? How to be aware of, okay, this event happened, right?
Yes.
This event led me to have this automatic thought. We all have automatic thoughts, right?
Okay.
Um, this event led me to have this automatic thought. Based on
Right.
this automatic thought, I felt embarrassed, I felt shame, right?
Mm.
Now, what I want you to do is, okay, how realistic is that automatic thought, right?
Okay.
And then you have to write evidence. And then you have to now yourself, you have to go against your own evidence for how realistic that automatic
So it's like
thought
I'm
is.
in the court and I'm the prosecutor and I'm also the defense.
Yep, yep. And then when you notice it, so then you have all this data here, right? And now your
Right.
job is to revise your automatic thought, because after you realize and you see the data, you would realize like, oh, wait a minute, that automatic thought is not, it's not that true, actually. It's not
Mm.
it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
It's an assumption. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
actually not true. And then
Yeah.
once you revise this automatic thought, you have to say, okay, how do you feel now? If you would
Yeah.
think like this, how do you feel? And they
Yeah.
tend to say, you know what? Yeah, I feel better. Like I feel good. I feel, like, so they start to be
Yeah.
able to play around with being able to challenge their own thoughts and
Yes.
and widen their perspectives.
Yeah. And I have a similar exercise that I take people through, which is there are questions that you ask yourself, a list of questions that you ask yourself that actually makes you think whether what you're thinking is true or not.
Yes, yes. It's so good. It's
Basically,
so good.
because that's what it is you can take something that is not true and make it true
Yeah,
by providing evidence that it
yeah.
is true, or you can make it untrue. So you can believe, you can talk yourself into believing something, and you can talk yourself out of believing something,
Oh my goodness. Yes, yes. Like
right? Because it's all about how you think.
and we do this all the time. We convince
Mm.
ourselves of things that are not true.
Yeah,
And you convince yourself so much that you cannot see past it.
it
So
becomes
so
true.
it becomes true to you. It becomes true. That's what you see, and that's really how the subconscious mind also works, right? The conscious mind. So if based on what I believe in, that's what I see. That's what my eyes are able to capture, right? So like if I believe that I'm not good enough, and let's say I do this great event, but one person, everyone's giving me compliments, but one person says like, yeah, you could have done this better. That's it. To me, I did
Everything
horrible.
else falls away.
Everything else falls away. And my whole focus is that I didn't do good enough.
Oh my
Right.
goodness, I love that example. So we
Yeah.
have selective power of focus, and we
Hmm.
only focus on those things that are
Yeah.
supported by our belief system, and
Exactly.
everything else gets ignored, even if it is
Everything else
good.
gets ignored.
Even if
Even if it's
whether it
good.
is good or bad, we ignore
Yeah.
those things. So
Yeah.
we really are not absorbing everything that life has to offer to us, or living everything that a moment has to offer to us. We are
Yeah.
selective
We're
in
selective
what
based
we
on what we
process.
believe.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Because, the brain can only take so much information.
right.
Right. So our eyes mind really, really filters out the information that it gives to our consciousness based on what we believe in.
Mm,
So any
mm.
belief, we can have any belief. If I believe that all men are cheaters, guess what I'm gonna attract into my life?
Cheaters. Yes.
Yep.
I
Yep.
had a client like that at one point in time. That's all she was attracting,
Yeah.
was cheaters.
Yeah.
And she used to ask me this question, why am I getting all the cheaters? I'm sure there are other men out there, but yeah,
Yeah.
not for you,
Yeah.
sweetheart. Not till
Right.
you change your beliefs.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes,
Even when I start working with my couples, right? They
yes,
would come in with a belief like, I don't know if this is going to work for me, meaning like I don't know if this relationship is going to work out for me.
right,
And the first thing that I ask is, how much do you trust your therapist?
right.
Right? Because right now all I need you
Mm,
to do is to trust that I know what to do to help you.
mm,
Right? So if they trust me and they do exactly
yes,
what not they do exactly what I tell them to do, but if they follow the recommendations that I recommend, they like it switches for them.
and
And
switches, yeah,
even they are blown away because they're like, oh my goodness, like we happy now. And I'm like, exactly, because it's all about mindset. It's all about the mindset and about what you guys are communicating to each other about your
right.
own relationship with one another. So yeah, I mean, mindset is everything. I know that people sometimes feel like it's cliche and like, oh my goodness,
No,
yeah,
it is.
everybody talking about mindset, but it
Yeah.
is the honest truth.
It is. It really is. And you said something wonderful there, and I truly believe in it, is that when you can't trust yourself, put your trust in someone else.
Mm.
Like we
Yeah,
all go through those phases in our life when we can't think of the solution, or we
yeah,
can't come up with what to do next. And then just go to someone that you can trust
yeah,
and just follow through on their advice,
yeah.
because you have to move forward. If you get
Hmm.
stuck, then nothing changes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
okay to not have all the answers. I don't have all
for
the
sure.
answers.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, we
Yeah,
are evolving all the time.
all the
I'm
time.
always learning about myself and I'm always excited when I learn either
Yeah,
things that I like or things that I don't like about
yeah,
myself, because when I
exactly.
learn the things that I don't like, then I can change them,
Yes, that's
you
right.
know?
Yeah, that's what it's all about. It's under our control. And I love what you just said. I always say when I learn something, I write a book about it, because I'm
Yes, love that.
constantly learning something. That's why I've written so many books.
I love that. I love that. And I love that you love sharing it, right, with the world.
Well, exactly, because why
Yeah.
keep it to myself? One of the things that I've learned is we don't take anything away from each other.
Yeah.
We don't. We just we all join together and contribute to the whole. We don't take anything away. So, so Kiara, what are some of the things? key messages that you want to leave the audience with before we close out today?
That's such a great one. I think that one of the key messages that I would say is that, we are put in this world to be happy and to
Right.
live the life that we want to live. And I know that sometimes it can be so difficult to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
But I think that one of the things that has helped me in my own personal growth and my career, my success in life, has been trusting myself and trusting that inner voice. And the inner voice, that intuition that really leads me and guides me. And I think that without me being able to like connect to that self, to that inner self, to that higher self that I know it's within me, I would not be where I am today. So I think that that's one message. Another message is always go back to history. Always be curious about you. Always be curious about what has made you who you are today, and then make a decision about who you want to become now. Make a decision about who you want to be. Make a decision about how you want to show up. And I know it sounds easy. It's easier always said than done. But there's so many, one of the key things that I didn't mention, but that is so important, is setting boundaries and sticking to those boundaries to really evolve and become who you want to be. So I think those are two things that I would share.
Amazing. And I think those are very important things. Whenever my inner voice tells me something and I don't listen, I know I always regret it. Even if it's something as simple as, okay, turn left here, and you say, no, that's going the wrong way. Next thing you know, there's a pile up in front of you, those kinds of things have happened to me where I don't listen to that little voice. And then I'm like, oh, I should have listened.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Sarah,
So
what I
very
started?
important.
Yeah, Sarah, what I started doing recently? Well, not
Yeah.
recently, I think a couple of months ago, because I found myself having difficulties with trusting myself, right? And with certain decisions that I needed to make.
Right.
I found myself really depending on other people's opinions. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, what am I doing? This is not okay. I need to depend on me. And I what I started doing? I started driving around, to get home, but I started driving without a GPS and only going based on my intuition.
Ooh.
And it's so fun because I always get home and it's the right path.
There you go.
So
that's training your intuition.
Training my intuition, and that has strengthened it so much. So
remember the times when we didn't have GPS?
Right. Right. So so I just wanted to share that because I love when
that's beautiful
about, listening to your intuition.
And no, I love it. And I think we should all take some time out for self-reflection and just appreciating all the good things that we have in life. And what you said was so important. I think that if you know who you want to become, it's like having a goal, like any other goal. If this is my goal, what do I need to do to get there? And then get going, because just staying there is not going to make it happen. You got to break it down into small steps and start taking those steps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in order for us to become who we want to be, we have to acknowledge who we're not yet.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with negative emotions. In order for us to feel the positive ones, we have to acknowledge what the negative are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't brush them under the carpet. They don't go away that way. Yeah, right. Agreed completely. KIARA, tell us, where can people find you if they want to hook up with you, listen to more of your valuable insights? Where do they look for you?
Of course. Well, they can go to my Instagram, Mrs. KIARA Luna. So mrskiaraluna. And you can also visit my website, newyoupsychotherapy.com. That's my private practice website, in addition to my personal website, KIARALUNA.com.
Awesome. And we'll also have all those links in the show notes in case anyone wants to follow you. Thank you so much for your time today and all your wisdom. Really appreciate having you here. Before I close out, just one tiny little question. What's the difference between coaching and therapy?
Ooh, that's a great question. So the difference between coaching and therapy, coaching focuses on the present and future. So present and what we want to continue working on in the future. Therapy focuses more on the past. Amazing. And how it has, how it has helped you, or how it has, you know, the traumatic events and all of those things, and how it has shaped you to be who you are today and things like that.
Perfect. Is one more appropriate for a certain type of person than the other type of person?
That's a Sarah, these are great questions. You're like, what? No.
The questions just keep
yes.
coming. I want to
Yeah.
close you know, like our time is done. I appreciate your time commitment,
Of
but
course.
I still have so many more questions
Yeah,
for
no,
you.
I love them. I love them. I love them. So I think, you know, there is when there is a high self-awareness
Yes.
of a lot of the traumatic experiences, and you are aware of a lot of maladaptive behaviors, I think coaching is very appropriate. I think coaching is also very appropriate for people who know what they want, right? Because there's mindset coaches, right, that can support
Yes.
you and rewiring your thoughts and mindset. And but there are also the people who are struggling, for example, with depression or anxiety or more specific symptoms. I would say that those would be more appropriate for therapy,
Okay.
to be able to overcome, you know, those symptoms.
Sounds like it's readiness. So those people who are ready to take action, go forward, should do that. And people who are feeling kind of stuck and can't figure out should go backwards. Am I kind of?
Yeah, and I think it also depends on the therapist, right? Because a lot of therapists also focus on personal growth, right? And I mean,
Right.
therapy is about personal growth, right?
Okay.
It depends on what that therapist's niche might be, and focus might be. But I think that when you are trying to decide coaching or therapy, I think one of the things that can support you in deciding that is, you know, what is my goal, and
Okay.
getting out of whatever, you know, I choose to be in.
Hmm. It's a tough one. I think we need to meet more again and sort this one out. Because
Yeah,
I still have
yeah.
more questions about this, but I will bring this call to a close. Thank you so much for sharing your
No,
insights once again.
thank you for having me here with you.
Oh, you're most welcome, and we'll have you back again.